Great peace, great peace, great peace. How's everybody doing? Let's talk about this, right? The North and the South. The South is way more enjoyable to live. I lived in the South on an occasion maybe 3 times. And I lived in South Carolina, I lived in Texas, and I lived in Mississippi. Um, the South is way more enjoyable to live. Um, the thing I notice about the North is that it's very common to see people who you grew up with traveling throughout the North, and it can get kind of like it can leave a bitter taste in your mouth. Like if you constantly see people and you know where they're from, like oh, this person may be from Inglewood, Chicago, and you're running into them again or something like that. Like it can be very annoying. The South isn't like that. The South is very wide. Um, you can pretty much you can end up pretty much anywhere in the South and not even have to see whoever you don't really want to see. You know what I mean? I really like the South, particularly Texas, Mississippi, and South Carolina. Um, the thing I like about Mississippi is it has a lot of rural areas. And the time that I do remember when I was a kid, like growing up there, was like, you know, the people were very homely. And then you got Texas. I lived in Texas for a part of my young adult life. And I kept noticing like how easy it was to like lose sense of what was really going on around you, like living in Texas. Like it could be something going on and you won't even know about it, like really, because that's how far apart Texas is from the rest of the world. Like Texas is its own little world. Like if something is going on in New York and it's catastrophic, you won't even know about it in Texas. You won't even think about it. um in South Carolina, right? I lived in South Carolina throughout my young adult life. And the thing I noticed about South Carolina was that, you know, a lot of people there seem to be very civil. They take being civil very seriously. When you run into somebody in Chicago, they don't take being civil seriously. If you run into somebody in Detroit, they don't take being civil seriously. And the thing I noticed about South Carolina is that they honor the struggle. They they honor the struggle. Um, I didn't really get that, like growing up in Detroit and in Chicago. I didn't really get that. Like people don't honor the struggle like that. They not grateful for the life around them. You know what I mean? They're not grateful. Um, so I love South Carolina. I love Mississippi. I love Texas. You know, and like these states, when we think about like Florida and stuff like that, like a lot of the states, in the South, those Confederates, um, they're together. You know what I mean? It's like you get the same experience wherever you go. It's a lot of black people throughout that region, and they're doing very well for themselves. They're doing very well for themselves. The only reason I'm still in the North is because my mother is here. Um, like if my mother wasn't here, like I would not be in the North. it's very depressing to live in the North. You have Minnesota, which is kind of a bright spot in the North, but again, like we're tropical people. Like we belong in the South. We belong in the South. So, you know, um, I would say, move to a place like South Carolina. Check it out. You know, Sangaree, South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina. Like, check those places out. Um, you'll be surprised at how those places are. Like, you'll be surprised how different. Like when you arrive in these places, like you notice like how different they are compared to places that you may have just come from. Like you come from Chicago, you come from Detroit, you come from Philadelphia. You notice how different these places in the South really are, and how different, vastly different. So great peace, Yakoki.